Okay, we're on Daf Yud Amid Beis, 4 lines down, the 2 dots, by the 2 dots. We said in the Mishnah, Ibra Chodesh B'Shleisha. You needed bezin of 3 for Ibra Chodesh. And the Gemara immediately starts nitpicking. Chishuv like Tani, Kiddush like Tani, Ele Ibra. The Mishnah could have said you need 3 dayanim in order to calculate when the Ibra Chodesh is, meaning there are two aspects to Ibra Chodesh. One is that you have your Makadosh the Chodesh by seeing the Levana. They have Eidim, they come testify, and then there's a second overlay that the Chacham have to make a cheshbon of where they're holding basically every lunar month comes out to be 29 and a half plus days, a little bit more than 29 and a half days. So in theory, you should always see the new moon in the 29th day, but then you'll end up losing a half day over 2 months, and you're going to end up getting earlier and earlier. I think that's the problem. That's the way I understand it. So they have to make a cheshbon whether it should be a 30 months, because we're going to see there's restrictions. You can't have more than 8 months that are ma'uber or less than 4 months that are ma'uber. So you have to make these calculations. Means because, yeah. So they have all the cheshbainis about whether each month should be 29 or 30 days. But like we said, this is a mission erich, and that you don't do more than 8 during a year, so you have to make the cheshbainis come out, so that it works well. That would be chishuv. And also Kiddush like Tani. We didn't say you need it for Kiddush. Ele Ibo. Where it says the Mishnah has said not to be Mekadosh means that to accept the edus of the witnesses. So tomorrow, loy liktashe. Ele Ibo it says to be Ma'aber. Loy liktashe. The Gemara says in those cases where the 29th day had passed and they were not yet Mekadosh, they didn't say that the 30th day is Rish Chodesh. So obviously, when the 30th day comes, it's going to be clear that the following day is going to be Rish Chodesh. It's going to be a 30-day month. So, you don't have to Mekadosh. What do you have to be Ma'aber the Chodesh? In those cases, it shouldn't be any necessity of being Ma'aber the Chodesh. So why are we making it as if it's necessary to always have 3 dayanim to be ma'aber the chodesh? Let it happen naturally in those cases where it's going to be on the second possible day of Ibra chodesh. Amar Abaya Tani Kiddush HaChodesh. Abaya says it has to say Kiddush HaChodesh. You need Eidim to accept the testimony of the witnesses that saw the Laban.
So the Gemara really saying now, according to Abaya, you don't need Ibra is not necessary?
It's saying that you don't need a bezdin for it. That means why would you need a bezdin for Ibra? The pashtus. Tanya nami hachi Kiddush HaChodesh v'Ibra hashana b'shleisha. Kiddush HaChodesh and being ma'aber the shana has to be done with a bezdin of 3. The Gemara is going to get in a minute to what the difference is of Ibra Hashan. Ibra Hashan is adding an extra month. That you're going to need to publicize by having we're going to see that's more likely you need a shloisha, because for reasons that we'll explain, basically because the Shana, it's necessary to let people know which month is going to be, whether the month is Adar or whether it's Rosh Chodesh or whether it's already Nisan. So Zak the Gemara. So Divrei Kiddush Chodesh Ibor Hashana B'Shloisha Divrei Emei. So you see that, but the reason we're bringing this is that Kiddush HaChodesh has to be B'Shloisha and not Ibor. Amar Rava says, but Ibor Ktani. This is all very fine and good, but you're changing the words. The Mishnah said Ibor. Why would the Mishnah say Ibor prevent Kiddush? Elo Amar Rava. Kiddush B'Yoim Ibor B'Shloisha. When we say Ibor over here, we don't mean the act of being Ma'abed L'Shana, or even the cheshbon of what the different cheshbonis that you make of whether you should be Ma'abed L'Shana. We're talking about Yom Ibor, so the day that is the pivot day, which is the 29th day, right? So that day either could pass, and then the following that day could either be Rish Chodesh, or it could be the Yom that you decide to wait one more day and make Rish Chodesh the next day. Okay. So I'm sorry, yeah. So Kiddush b'Yom Ibor b'Shloisha. If you're being Mekadesh the Chodesh, you're saying that this is going to be so they're making it, if they're making it on the earlier day, I'm sorry, so they said the 29th, that is the 30th day. So on this, if they say, meaning the last day is the 29th, and Rosh Chodesh of the next month is the 30th, so then they have to be Mekadesh on that 30th day, which was the first day of possible, which is either Uber or not. They're deciding not to, they're making it Rosh Chodesh. Achar Iber Leka. But for the following day, then there's no need for a bezdin of shloisha to be mekadesh. Umani. Now, this is
it's like Abaya, like what Abaya had said earlier.
No,
right? No, Abaya had said if there isn't.
He said the other way around. He said kiddush chodesh.
Oh no, sorry. Before Abaya, on the question. That's what we're going like now.
That was a question.
Right, but I'm saying now we're going with that. We're going with that now. In a way.
Well, you're saying the loy lekacha me'la ava, but we're saying exactly the other way around.
Right. In other words,
we're saying that the first day you do need bezdin to be mekadesh, the second day not. The Tanya, this is like Umani Rebbe Elazar ben Tzadiki. The Tanya Rebbe Elazar ben Tzaddik Omer, Im loy nir bizmane ein mekachana say shekrakitshu b'shamayim. If it wasn't near a bizmane, if you didn't see on the third, on the 29th day, which would make the 30th day Rish Chodesh, ein mekachana say, then it's not necessary, right? So it's like the cheshbon that we had said before, that once we miss that, once we know when it's going to be, it's krakitshu shamayim. So there's no need for a bezdin for that. But he's also, so in addition to saying like that, he's also changing the meaning of Ibor. He's saying Ibor doesn't mean you need a bezdin for Ibor. What it means is it's referring to Yom Ibor, and it's saying Kiddush b'Yom Ibor. The first day you need to be Mekadesh, like we said the cheshbon, like you said the cheshbon in Amaya before. But if it's already the 30th day, that's going to happen memela, so it's no need. And this is like Rebbe Elazar, who says like this. In later Zman, Nachman Omer, Kiddush Achar Ibor B'Shloisha. He says exactly the other way around. He says if you mekadesh it on the 31st day, meaning if it comes out on the second possible day of Rish Chodesh, Rish Chodesh comes out on the second possible day, then you need a shloisha for that. But on the first day, then it's not. Umani plimi. This is going like plimi, detanya plimi omer bizmane mekachenai say shalei bizman mekachenai say. And Rashi explains this is all because this is all derabanan that you need kiddush. But etzem you don't need a bezdin at all for kiddush. The Chachamim said that on the day, bismana, so when it's the regular day, there's no need to have a bezdin be mekadesh it, because that's the day that's considered, that's really 29 and a half days. That's when Rish Chodesh is supposed to be. So it doesn't need the chizuk, it doesn't need the backup, the reinforcement of having a bezdin sanction it. But if it's Mu'ober, if it's going to be the next day, then you need. This is exactly the opposite of the cheshbon we said before, that before we said since it's going to naturally be Mu'ober, once we know it's not the first day, so then it has to be the second day, so there's no need to be Mekadesh it, there's no need to have a bez. And now we're saying the other way around, since it's more it's more Mechudesh, or it's out of what the standard calculation is to be Ma'abed the Chodesh, so you need a bezdin for that. Rav Ashi Amar La'olam Chishuv Katani. What we're really talking about is that you need to have a bezdin to make the cheshbon of whether to Ma'aber. Umay Ibor. What does it mean when it says Ibor? Chishuv the Ibor. It really just means to make the cheshbon, like we had said, like we're saying, until now we were saying now that you need there's two possibilities. First of all, you can need to have a bezdin to be mekadesh, which is a machlokes like we brought, whether you need Adam to be mekadesh, have the Adam come and say they saw the moon. Then there's a question: do you need a bezdin for the actual ibur, for the ritual of being ma'aber? But before you come to that, there's a cheshbon of whether you should make an ibur, and that we're saying now. That's what he's saying. That's what you need a bezdin for. You need a bezdin for the ibur. Now the question is though, why did we say chishuv? I'm sorry, why did we say chishuv and we didn't say anything else?
Why did we say ibur if that was the case?
Why did we say ibur? Right. Why did we say ibur if we meant chishuv?
Right.
But I did the gaboy lemisne ibur shana. Since legabe the shana, we have to say ibur shana, because if we said chishuv, we would think chishuv includes also kiddush. So Tananami Ibur Chodesh. So we said also Ibur Chodesh, Chishuv Chodesh in Kiddush Chodesh Loi. And we're saying that when we say Ibur, we say Chishuv, it means you need Chishuv but not Kiddush. And who is this? Mani Rebbe Lezi, the Tanya Rebbe Lezi, Bein Bizmani, Bein Shloi Bizmani, Ein Mekachin, I say. He says that there's no such thing that you need a bezdin for Kiddush. That's unnecessary. So therefore, it says Chishuv, to the exclusion of being Mekadesh. And ever Kedashta Mishnasa Chamishim Shana, Shana Mat Mekadesh, V'yat Mekadesh Chadashim. He says there's no need to be Mekadesh a Chodesh. So we use a lashon of Ibur, which really means Chishav the Ibur. But this is really, let me look at the Rashi again.
Rashi seems to be saying that.
Chishuv the Ibur. Let's see Rashi Chishuv the Ibur. You got that, Rashi?
Yeah.
Like we said from Rabbi Lazar at the end, we're going to quote from him that he holds it doesn't need the kachay. Loy mali v'lechaser. Kulazar Reb Shimon lekamon. V'ayid tani Ibur hashana. Since we said Ibur by the shana, the havinami chishuv the Ibur. Over there, when it says Ibur, it means the cheshbon of the Ibur. Hashana v'hasam loy sagi loy tani Ibur. Over there, when we said over there, you couldn't not say Ibur. You didn't have the option of saying Chishuv. The Amira boy Sheyikachu Adar Hasheni. L'shem Adar. Because the Amira boy, that it's necessary for them to say it out loud. You have to be, it's clear to the Gemara, it's a given that you have to publicly be ma'aber the Shana. Why? Like we said before, people will always assume it's the general rule is that it's after Adar comes Nisan. So since we couldn't say over there, it's clear it has to say Ibur by the Shana. So we said the lashon of Ibur by the Chodesh, even though it's not precisely correct. We don't really mean Ibur, but what we really mean is the cheshbon of Ibur. But we wanted it to be consistent, so we used a slightly imprecise lashon of Ibur. Tanami gabi chaydish ibor hachaydish v'karnami l'chishav ibor. Even the chishav inan avol kiddush loy inan loy l'malav l'chasa. And the point is, listen, if it's not, it has to be meaning something, right? We're saying it's imprecise, but it has to be saying something, and that the Gemara says what it is saying is that there's no need for kiddush at all. Legabi the chaydish. Okay. Zak the Gemara. Reb Shimon Gamliel Omer b'shloisha. Reb Shimon Gamliel says that the ibor ha-chaydish, the ibor hashana has to be b'shloisha, ube-chamisha, ube-shiva. So what does this mean? Tanya Ketzad. How does this work? Amar Reb Shimon Gamliel b'shloisha maschilin. You start with 3, b'chamisha, noisav, and noisav, then you have a dialogue, you discuss it amongst 5, and you end with 7. So how does this work? So the first question is, should we convene a bezdin for this purpose? And they have a discussion, should they even have a bezdin? So you have to have a bezdin to decide whether you have a bezdin. If 2 say, no, it's not necessary to have a bezdin. We don't need to sit in court. And one says you do batal yob miyuti. So the 1 is batal, and we go with the 2, and there's nothing. You don't go further. But if it's the other way around, the 2 people say, let's continue. You add 2 to them, so now you have 5. Then they discuss: is it kedai to make an ibiyah? If you have a roiv that say it's not necessary to make an ibiyah, and then you don't go any further. But if 3 say let's proceed, we should be making ibiyah. You add 2, so now you have 7. You can't have the final amount be less than 7. Where does this come from that you need 3, 5, and 7? Rav Yitzchak bar Nachmani and one of the people that he was together with argued about this. Amanu Reb Shimon ben Pazi, it's Reb Shimon ben Pazi. V'amri lo Reb Shimon ben Pazi v'chad imi Amanu Reb Yitzchak bar Nachmani. Some of the people say Shmuel bar Nachmani because otherwise it's hard to understand what the difference between these two nuschayos are. In any case, Chad Amar Keneged Birchas Kehanim. One says the reason why you have 3, 5, and 7 is connected the psukim in Birchas Kehanim. Yivrech Hashem Yishmerecha is 3, Yor Hashem Panav Elecha V'Yichunecha is 5, Yisrael Hashem Panav Elecha Yosem Chasholim is 7. And the Mefarshim all ask, what does all this come from? What does Birchas Kehanim have to do with Kiddush HaChodesh? And I thought, whether you Abba L'Shana, that this is the bracha, this is the nusach of bracha that Baruch Hashem gave us. So we want to, if we're going to make an extra month, we want it to be gebenched. We want a bracha on this decision. Very balabatis and simple. But I know there are more. I'm sure the Maral has a much more complicated philosophical explanation. So that was one sheet. V'chada Amar Shloisha Keneged Shomrei Asaf. 3 are Keneged the Shomrei Asaf. Those are the in Yirmiyah they say who went back into Bavel and who went into Galus and were given responsibilities to watch over things, were in charge of different things in the Beis Hamikdash. I think Chamisha Miroi Pnei HaMelech, and then this 5 is another group of people that had responsibilities in the Beis Hamikdash. And Shiva Roi Pnei HaMelech, and Shiva is referred to the Shiva Roi Pnei HaMelech. Rashi says in Achashverosh that it says, what does Rashi say? Chamisha Miroi Pnei HaMelech B'Achashverosh Ashkan Shiva Sorei Parasamadai. And it describes them as Roi Pnei HaMelech. Taisus is very bothered by this. You look at the beginning of Taisus, Shiva Roi Pnei HaMelech, Pish B'Kodesh Achashverosh Koi. Ve'ein nirashe tiknu keneged Sorei Ha'ivdei Galilim. Tvarsha Ben Atam Dehem Sorei Yisrael. That's what said Malachim the Galin Urazan Gibos. There were a bunch of of Yidden that were there by Achashverosh. So the Shemrei Roi Pnei HaMelech of Achashverosh were also Yidden. In any case, Amlei Abayla Rabbi Yosef, Ada Idna my time. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped. Tani Rabbi Yosef. Hani Shloisha B'Chamisha B'Shiva Shloisha Keneged Shemrei Hasaf Chamisha Meroi Pnei HaMelech Shiva Roi Pnei HaMelech. He says the exact same shot, but he brings it as a brisa. Amlei Abayla Rabbi Yosef, Ada Idna my time Alei Parshal Marachi. Why did you never tell me about this brisa? I was always wondering where this thing comes from. I didn't know you needed to be explained. Did you ever ask me anything I didn't answer? All you need to ask is, and I was happy to tell you. Very strange Masu Matan here. Yeah. Zman Nasi Tzarech Gedi Simon. Tan Rabban. Ein ma'avernes hashala ella b'mizumanim. You have to have special dayanim that had been already. I guess you need the guys who had good math heads and weren't bothered by being Isaac in this. Like, can you imagine if you had to go? If you went into a like BMG and you pulled out 10 Kyle guys and said you have to make the cheshbainis if we should be ma'aber l'shana. Most of them would run away and never be heard of again. I'm sure almost every one of them would do that. So they had to prepare themselves with the technical details of Iber Hashana. Prepare for me 7 people to be Isaac in Iber Hashana and to send them up to my attic. Hishkim, he got up early. He found there were 8 people there. Who is the one of you who came here without being authorized, without having made the proper preparations? Whoever was Yorad, he should leave. He should leave the Aliyah. Ahmed Shmuel Akatan stood up. I'm the one who came without Rishus. I'm not here as a member of the Bezdin. I just wanted to observe and learn the halachas. He said to him, "No, you could stay. Don't worry. You are knowledgeable and proficient enough that all the Iber Hashana should always be done with you." But even though you're Roy, we have to use the other 7 because we have to use them as a mana. So tomorrow, as a postscript, Shmuel HaKatan was not really the person who wasn't authorized to be there. It was another person. He did this in order to avoid embarrassing the other person. So the Mefarshim all ask, how could you do it? We just said that you need to have people who are Mizum, and how could you go ahead with it? So they say that they ended up not being Mizam, and that they ended up not being Ma'av Shana. Shmuel was sitting there, and he knew if they were going to be Ma'av Shana, he'd have to, at that point, speak up and say anything. But it worked out that he didn't have to say anything because they decided not to be Ma'av. Which is a little strange to me because I would imagine that you need a 7 also to not be Ma'av. You need all the Dayanim, but I guess it's not a halacha. It sort of gets it's null. It's void. The whole thing is void if you don't have the Iber Hashana.
Yeah, makes sense.
Kihadi Yosef Rebbe, the Kadarish, that we have, and then we're going to bring a bunch of examples of this idea of a person taking the bizayin on himself in order to avoid pointing out someone else's failings. Kiyadi Yosef Rebbe, the Kadarish. Rebbe was darshaning, and he smelled the smell of garlic, and it started disturbing him while he was giving a shir. He said, whoever ate garlic should leave. Rav Chia got up and left. Once people saw that Rav Chia left, they also all left. The next day, Rav Shimon, the son of Rebbe, was the Maggid Shir, said to Rav Chia, you're the one who caused tsar to my father by eating garlic and then coming to the shir? He said, there's no such thing. It would never be such a thing that I would eat shum. I would never have such disrespect. He did it, though, in order to protect whoever the real guilty party was. Rav Chia mehecha gama, where did Rav Chia learn to do such a thing? Mirav Meir. The Tanya Maisa Beisha Acha Shabasal Beis Midrash Sherav Meir. A woman came to the Beis Medrash of Meir. Amar Loi, Rebbe, Echad Michem Kitshani Bebia. One of the people in the Beis in your Beis Medrash was Makadosh me with Bia, which I think we said that the Chacham put a cherem or a nidui on someone who's Makadosh the Bia. So I seem to remember from Kedushin. Amar Rameh, because of law get grisus, Rameh took it upon himself. He said, I'm the one. He wrote a get, law, and he gave it to Amdu Kasu Kulam law. Everyone else realized what was going on. They realized Rameh was not the one who really did it. So they also gave a get, and that way whoever was the real person didn't have to embarrass himself. Rameh Hecha Gamala Mishmuel HaKatan. He learned from Shmuel HaKatan. Like we said before, we started with Shmuel HaKatan. By being Ma'av the Shana. He volunteered as the one who wasn't sent up. Shmuel HaKatan Mehecha Gama, where did Shmuel HaKatan get it from? Mishachne ben Yechiel. He learned it from Shachne ben Yechiel. The Chsiv Yan Shachne ben Yechiel Mnei Elam V'yayim Elezra Anachnu Ma'alnu B'Elei Kenu V'Noishav Noshem Nachrius Me'amei Aretz. He said this Shachne ben Yechiel was a chashuv person. Said we have intermarried. We married Nashim Nachri, a strange woman from the people who live here. Is there hope for us by doing shuva? So I mean, he took it upon himself, even though he certainly did not intermarry, but he said it as if he was, in order to draw everyone else, the actual guilty parties, to do shuva as well. He learned it from Yeshua. Kum leich. He said, let's go. Lamat ze'at neifel al panecha. Chata Yisrael. He said to Yeshua, Rabbi Shalom said it to Yeshua that as if the Gans Klal Yisrael was chata, even though it was really just, I think this was, what is this? I don't remember what this was. Yeshua, Meimaisa Yeshua Shalei Ratza Kadosh Baruch Hu listen mihu chachoytav hechmas eskum b'chlal shenem achata Yisrael b'masa da'achan. This is where they lost the battle in Ai and people were killed for the first time. They said it was because people were choyta. They took from the booty when they weren't supposed to, and they say the Baruch Shem said it as if everyone did it, even though it was only one, in order to protect the guilty party. Amru Fal Rabban Shalom michata. Yeshua said to Rabban Shalom, who was the one who did it? The Rabban Shalom said, am I the Baal Lashon Hara? Lech hatal geralis. Go make a girl, and that's how you could find it out. But anyway, you see that the point is that Rabban Shalom protected the guilty. Moshe said, until how long are you going to hold off? This is after, I believe, Dasan Vaviram went out and collected extra month. Tanavan, Mishemesu Nevima Echroinim, Chagis Chayim Malachi, the time that these Negivim Achrim died, Nestalku Ruach HaKodesh Yisrael, there's no more Ruach HaKodesh. Balfa became, Hayimishtamshim Baska. They did it at least here at Baska, which was a lower level of Nevuah. Pamachas Hayimasum Baliyas Beis Guria, Birichai, they were in the attic of Beis Guria in Yerichai. The Nosale in Baska, and Hashemayim, Baska came out. Yishkan Echad Sheroy Shetisha of Shechina, K'moish Rabbein. There's someone here who is roy to have Hashroy Shechina. Shein Dar is Zaka Lekach. But the Dar makes it impossible. They all looked at Hillel HaZaken. He was clearly the biggest tzaddik, and he was the one that the Baska was referring to. When he died, they said about him, Hi Chassid, Ay this a Chassid, Hi Anav, what an Anav, Talmid Shel Ezra, and he was a Talmud of Ezra. Shuv Pamachas, another time, Hayumasum Baaliyah b'Yavne, they were in a attic in Yavne, Nosnalei and Baskel, and Hashemayim, Baskel came out, Yeshkan Echad Sheroy to Shishul of Shechina, El Shein Dar Zaka Lekach Nasu Chamas, Einim B'Shmuel HaKatan. This time they looked at Shmuel HaKatan. He was a Talmud of Hillel. And when Shmuel HaKatan himself died, even though he wasn't Zaycha to Nevuah because of the dar, but B'Shas Misa, a person has an extra access to a different level of Kedusha, then he actually did have a Nevuah. He said, Shimon v'Yishmael l'charva l'charava. Shimon, Rav Shimon and Rabbi Yishmael were, this is from the Asara Haruge Malchus, they're going to be killed by the sword because they were part of the Nesias. The Chaburoi Liktola and the rest of the Chaverim were going to be killed in other ways. Bashar Amal Aviza and the rest of Klal Yisrael is going to be sacked. The Akon Sagian Asidin Lemese Al Alma. And what does that mean? Liktola. Akan Sagian Asid Lemese Alama, and it's going to bring something bad on the rest of the Bnei Yisrael. Al Yehudim and Bava Bikshu Loim Bekain. He wanted to say this also about Yehudim and Bava. El Shenit Rishashah. They wanted to say this type of nusach, high tzaddik, high chassid, saying like high anav, high chassid, but they weren't able to do so. She'ein mafsidin al haruge malchus. You can't make a hesped on Haruge Malchus. Yehuda and Bava was in the Haruge Malchus, and they didn't have the opportunity to be masked them. Nasi. You have to have the Haskama. The Nasi has the ability to veto it, and he has to be maskim to the Ibra Shanu. He was going, he had some business to do with the ruler in Syria. And he wasn't able to get back. He was the Nasi, and he couldn't get back. They were ma'avad the shana al t'nai that Reb Gamliel would be maskim, because like we just said, you have to have the haskama of the Nasi. They were able to l'mafreya be ma'avad the shana. You can't be ma'avad the shana unless it's needed for one of a couple of reasons. Because during the winter season, the roads would get very muddy, and it would be impossible for people to come to be Ayla Regel. So sometimes it was still the winter, it was still muddy. They would give it an extra month before Pesach to give time to dry out. Because the bridges also would get ruined, they would need to dry out. The tanur, what they would use to cook the Pesach, would also need to dry out or to cook the matzahs. Also, because of the people in Galus who were coming to be Ayla Regel, and they already left their houses, but it was taking them too long to get to Yerushalayim to be Ayla Regel, so they give them an extra month to make sure that they get there in time. But they wouldn't wait for snow, not because of the cold, not because of the Negayla who hadn't left. If they hadn't left at all, then we didn't make a Ibriyar to help them out. We also are not ma'abed shana for the animals, for the goats and the sheep, that we were waiting for them to get old enough, to get big enough, that they would provide sufficient meat to feed an entire family with the carbon Pesach. But you wouldn't do it not because of the geizlos that weren't, because people would bring their geizlos that they would need for the different, when you'd have to bring pairs of birds, they were waiting for the birds to get big enough to be brought. But the Gemara says it wasn't necessary. I think Rashi says because you could just wait, you could use a different type of bird. I think a yaina, Rashi says, doesn't need to be. It doesn't have to be able to fly on its own, so you could even use those. So it's not absolutely necessary, and it's not absolutely necessary to have such big sheep and goats. But you can use that as a supporting reason to the other reasons that we're going to give an Amud Beis why you would be ma'avad shana. These are not reasons on their own, but they can tip the scales. Okay, we'll stop over here. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. 8 o'clock
Thank you.
tomorrow, you said?
Yeah, we're going to try for 8 o'clock.